Fables in Rhyme for Little Folks. Public domain reading. The frog who wished to be as big as the ox. There was a little frog whose home was in a bog, and he worried 'cause he wasn't big enough. He sees an ox and cries, "That's just about my size. If I stretch myself, say, sister, see me puff." So he blew and blew and blew, saying, "Sister, will that do?" But she shook her head, and then he lost his wits, for he stretched and puffed again, till he cracked beneath the strain, and burst and flew about in little bits. Pop! The moral of this story: be careful of envy. The grasshopper and the ant. The grasshopper, singing all summer long, now found winter stinging and ceased in his song. Not a morsel or crumb in his cupboard, so he shivered and ceased in his song. Miss Ant was his neighbor, to her he went. "Oh, you're rich from labor, and I've not a cent. Lend me food, and I vow I'll return it, though at present I have not a cent." The ant's not a lender, I must confess. Her heart's far from tender to one in distress. So she said, "Pray how passed you the summer, that in winter you come to distress?" "I sang through the summer," Grasshopper said, "but now I am glummer, because I've no bread." "So you sang," sneered the ant. "That relieves me. Now it's winter. Go dance for your bread." He who will not work shall not prosper. The Cat and the Fox. The cat and the fox once took a walk together, sharpening their wits with talk about the weather. And as their walking sharpened appetite too, they also took some things they had no right to. Cream that is so delicious when it thickens pleased the cat best. The fox liked little chickens, with stomachs filled they presently grew prouder. And each began to try to talk the louder, bragging about his skill and strength and cunning. "Pooh," said the fox, "you ought to see me running. Besides, I have 100 tricks. You, cat, you? What can you do when Mr. Dog comes at you?" "To tell the truth," the cat said, "though it grieves me, I've but one trick, yet that's enough, believe me." There came a pack of foxhounds, yelping and baying. "Pardon me," said the cat, "I can't be staying. This is my trick," and up a tree he scurried, leaving the fox below a trifle bit worried. In vain his 100 tricks and ruses, the sort of thing that Mr. Dog confuses, doubling and seeking one hole then another, smoked out of each until he thought he'd smother. At last, as he once more came out of cover, 2 nimble dogs pounced on him. All was over. This fable basically tells us that we can have many tricks or many skills like the fox does. But sometimes an overabundance of these tricks or skills will fail us when one simple trick will do. Here lieth Reynard the fox, who had many tricks, but lacked one. The hen with the golden eggs. To this lesson in greed, pray, little ones, heed. Each day we are told, a most wonderful hen made an egg, laid an egg made of gold. For this meanest of men, so greedy was he was not satisfied. What is one golden egg to me? I want all the golden eggs that are inside the hen. He cut off her head and began to explore, but the poor hen was dead and could lay golden eggs no more. This is a simple fable about greed and how being greedy often leads us to lose what we already have. The dog and his image. A foolish dog who carried in his jaw a juicy bone looked down into a stream, and there he saw another dog. Splash! In he plunged into the water. But his image disappeared, and the meat he had in his mouth was gone. Indeed, he nearly sank, and barely reached the bank to safety. The moral of this story is those who covet, that means those who want what others have, will lose what they already have. We could also say to not be taken in by appearances. The acorn and the pumpkin. Once there was a country bumpkin who observed a great big pumpkin to a slender stem attached, while upon an oak tree nourished, little acorns grew and flourished. Bah, said he, that's badly matched. If, despite my humble station, I'd a hand in this creation, pumpkins on the oak would be, and the acorn, light and little, on this pumpkin stem so brittle, would be placed by clever me. Then, fatigued with so much thought, he rest beneath the oak tree sought. He soon in slumber found repose, but alas, an acorn falling on the spot where he lay sprawling, hit him plump upon the nose. Up he jumped, a wiser bumpkin. Gosh, he said, suppose a pumpkin came a-falling on my face. After all, if I had made things, I'll allow that I'm afraid things might be somewhat out of place. This fable is generally acknowledged that it owes something to how things are designed, i.e., God's creation is well made. It recounts how a country bumpkin questions the design of both the acorn and the pumpkin in the creation by supposing that it would be better if oak trees bore pumpkins and feeble vines supported small acorns. He then falls asleep beneath a tree and is awakened by the fall of the acorn, taking the comparative lack of injury he suffers as sufficient evidence of divine providence. It has been surmised that this fable promotes the idea that creation is well made. The Raven and the Fox. Mr. Raven was perched upon a limb, and Reynard the Fox looked up at him. For the Raven held in his great big beak a morsel the Fox would go far to seek. Said the Fox in admiring tones, "My word, Sir Raven, you are a handsome bird. Such feathers, if you would only sing, the birds of these woods would call you their king." The Raven, who did not see the joke, forgot that his voice was just a croak. He opened his beak in his foolish pride, and down fell the morsel that the Fox had spied. "Ha ha!" said the Fox, "and now you see you should not listen to flattery. Vanity, sir, is a horrid vice. I'm sure the lesson is worth the price." Do not be fooled by flatterers or sycophants. And of course, we have the lovely city mouse and country mouse, city mouse and the country mouse. A city mouse with ways polite, a country mouse invited to sup with him and spend the night. Said country mouse, "Delighted." In truth, it proved a royal treat, with everything that's good to eat. Alas, when they had just begun to gobble their dinner, a knock was heard that made them run. The city mouse seemed thinner, and as they scampered and turned tail, he saw the country mouse grow pale. The knocking ceased. Was just a false alarm. The city mouse grew braver. "Come back," he cried. "No, no, the farm, where I'll not quake or quaver, suits me just fine," replied the country mouse. "You're welcome to your city house." The moral of this story is sometimes other people's lives may seem wonderful, but they're not as great as they make you believe. The country mouse saying, "I'd rather be eating a bean than be gnawed on by continual fear." The Lion and the Gnat. The lion once said to the gnat, "You brat, clear out just as quick as you can. Now scat! If you meddle with me, I will not guarantee that you won't be slammed perfectly flat. Do you see?" Said the gnat, "Because you're called king, you thing, you fancy that you will make me take wing. Why, an ox weighs much more, yet I drive him before, when I get good and ready to sting. Now roar!" Then loudly his trumpet he blew, and whoo! How fiercely and fast at his foe he flew. From the tail to the toes, he draws blood as he goes. Then he starts in to sting and to chew his nose. Sir Lion was mad with the pain. In vain he roared and he foamed and he shook his mane. All the beasts that were nigh fled in fear from his cry, but the gnat only stung him again and again and again in the eye. He looked and laughed as he saw, ho, 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 the lion self-torn by his own tooth and claw, so his majesty's hide with his own blood was dyed. Said the gnat, "Shall I serve you up raw, or shall I serve you up fried?" "It's finished! The lion's loud roar is over. He's bitten and beaten, he's sick and sore. But a spider's web spread trapped the gnat as he sped with the news, he will never fight more, he's dead. Now this fable actually has two morals. The first one, the lion being arrogant towards the gnat, wound up being devastated by the gnat. So the least of our enemies, the gnat being so small, can often be the most feared. So never take someone for granted. Never underestimate someone, even if you're in a position of power or importance. But then the gnat becomes very proud of defeating the lion. And as he speeds away in his haughty glory, he's caught by a spider web. So the second moral is, pride over a success can often throw us off guard. So sometimes we become very proud at something we've done, and then we let down our guard, we let down our defenses, and can suffer accordingly. The dove and the ant. An ant who in a brook would drink fell off the bank. He tried to swim and felt his courage sink. This ocean seemed so wide, but for a dove who flew above, he would have drowned and died. The friendly dove within her beak a bridge of grass stem bore. On this ant, though worn and weak, contrived to reach the shore. Said he, the tact of this kind act I'll cherish evermore. Behold, a barefoot wretch went by with slingshot in his hand. Said he, you'll make a pigeon pie that will be kind of grand. He meant to kill the gentle bird who did not understand. The ant then stung him on the heel, so quick to see the sling in the boy's hand. The boy turned his head and missed the pigeon, and the pigeon pie took flight, and so the dove lived on to love, beloved by everything. And the moral of this story is an act of kindness is never wasted. The Fox and the Grapes. Rosy and ripe and ready to box, the grapes hang high over the hungry fox. He pricks up his ears and his eye he cocks. Ripe and rosy, yet so high, he gazes at them with a greedy eye, and know he must eat and drink or die. When the jump proves to be beyond his power, "Pooh," says the fox, "let the pigs devour. Fruit of that sort, those grapes are sour." And the moral of this story is that there are many who pretend to hate or despise something and put down something that is beyond their reach to attain. The donkey in the lion's skin. A donkey in the lion's skin arrayed made everyone fear, and this was strange, because he was himself afraid. Yet everywhere he strayed, the people ran away like deer. Aha! He is betrayed, for no lion has that long and hairy an ear. Old Martin spied the tip, and country folk, who are not in on the secret of the joke, with open mouths and eyes, stare at old Martin's prize. A lion led to mill with neck and yoke. And the moral of this story is a fool can deceive people by how they dress and appear. But as soon as the fool starts to speak, that fool will show who he or she really is. The Fox and the Stork. Old Father Fox, who was known to be mean, invited Dame Stork in to dinner. There was nothing but soup that could scarcely be seen. Soup never was served any thinner. And the worst of it was, as I'm bound to relate, Father Fox dished it up on a flat china plate. Dame Stork, as you know, has a very long beak. Not a crumb or drop could she gather. Had she pecked at the plate every day in the week. But as for the fox, sly old father, with his tongue lapping soup at a scandalous rate, he licked up the last bit and polished the plate. Pretty soon Mistress Stork spread a feast of her own. Father Fox was invited to share it. He came and he saw and he gave a great groan. The stork had known how to prepare it. She had meant to get even, and now it was her turn. Father Fox was invited to eat food from an urn. The urn's mouth was small, and it had a long neck. The food in it smelled most delightful. Dame Stork, with her beak in, proceeded to peck. But the fox found that fasting is frightful. Home he sneaked. On his way there he felt his ears burn when he thought of the stork and her tall, tricky urn. And the moral of this story is, do not try to deceive or play tricks on your friends or neighbors unless you can stand the same treatment for yourself. The Monkey and the Cat. Jocko, the monkey, Mouser, his chum, the cat, had the same master. Both were sleek and fat, and mischievous, if anything went wrong. The neighbors were not blamed, be sure of that. Jocko, 'tis said, was something of a thief. Mouser, if truth be told, would just as lief. Much stolen cheese, as chased the midnight mouse. The praise bestowed on either must be brief. One day these rogues, stretched flat before the fire, saw chestnuts roasting. Ah, could we conspire to jerk them out, said Jocko, from the coals, we'd smash the shells and have our heart's desire. Come, brother Mouser, this day 'tis your turn to do some bold and desperate thing to earn a reputation, you who are so quick. Snatch out the nuts before they start to burn. Alas, that I, a monkey, was not made to play with fire, but you are not afraid. So Mouser, pleased like many a cat or man, with pretty words, sly Jocko's wish obeyed. Into the fire he put a practiced paw, and out came a chestnut, clinging to his claw. Another and another, as they dropped, Jocko devoured them, whether roasted or raw. A servant enters, off the robbers run. Jocko, you may be sure, enjoyed the fun. But Mouser's paw is sadly singed. And for what? Just to get nuts for Jocko, and he got none. Of this story is that the flatterer, i.e. the monkey, will seek benefit, but at your expense. The Hare and the Tortoise. Said the tortoise one day to the hare, "I'll run you a race if you dare. I'll bet you cannot arrive at that spot as quickly as I can get there." Quoth the hare, "You are surely insane." Quoth the hare, "You are surely insane. Pray, what has affected your brain? You seem pretty sick. Call a doctor in, quick, and let him prescribe you something for your pain." "Never mind," said the tortoise. "Let's run." "Will you bet me?" "Why, certainly, yes, it is done." While the slow tortoise creeps, Mr. Hare makes 4 leaps, and then loafs around in the sun. It seemed such a one-sided race, to win was almost a disgrace. So he frolicked about, then at last he set out, as the tortoise was as nearing the place. Too late, though he sped like a dart, the tortoise was first. She was smart. "You can surely run fast," she remarked, "yet you are last. It is better to get a good start." This fable itself is a variant of a common folktale theme in which ingenuity and trickery, rather than doggedness, are employed to overcome a stronger opponent. The race is not always won by the swift. The Heron Who Was Hard to Please. A long-legged heron with a long neck and beak set out for a stroll by the bank of a creek. So clear was the water that if you looked sharp, you could see the pike caper around with the carp. The heron might quickly have speared enough fish to make for his dinner a capital dish, but he was a very particular bird. His food fixed just so at the hours he preferred, and hence he decided 'twas better to wait, since his appetite grew when he supped rather late. Pretty soon he was hungry, and stalked to the bank, where some pond fish were leaping, a fish of low rank. "Bah, bah," said the bird, "sup on these? No, not I. I'm known as a heron, as such I live high." Then some gudgeon swam past that were tempting to see. But the heron said haughtily, "No, not for me. For those I'd not bother to open my beak, if I had to hang round come next Friday a week." Thus bragged the big bird, but he's bound to confess that he opened his elegant beak for much less, and not another fish came. When he found all else fail, he was happy to open upon a simple fat snail. The moral of this story is, do not be too hard to suit, or you may have to be content with the worst or with nothing at all. The Raven Who Would Rival the Eagle. An eagle swooped from out of the sky and carried off a sheep. A raven, seeing him, said, "I could do that too, if I should try. His meal comes mighty cheap." Of all that well-fed flock was one, as fat as could be. The raven rose and lit upon her back. She seemed to weigh a ton, so very fat was she. And oh, her wool was wondrous thick. it would have made a mat. The raven's claws are caught and stick. He's played himself a pretty trick to fly with a sheep so fat. Ba, ba, caw, caw, cried bird and beast. The shepherd comes at last. Sir Raven, who would find a feast, is from the woolly one released, and in a cage kept fast. And the Fables moral is to put your effort and dedication in what you're really prepared to do, not in what is not suitable to you. The miller, his son, and the donkey. A miller and son once set out for the fair to sell a fine donkey they had brought up with care. And the way that they started made everyone stare. To keep the donkey fresh, so the beast would sell dear, on a pole they slung him. It surely seemed queer. He looked with heels up, like some huge chandelier. One person who passed them cried out in great glee, "Was there anything ever so silly?" said he. "Can you guess who's the greatest donkey in one of these? Can you guess who the greatest donkey is one of those three?" The miller at once put the brute on the ground, and the donkey, who had liked to ride the other way round, complained in language of curious sound. No matter, the miller now made his son ride, while he followed after or walked alongside. Then up came 3 merchants. The eldest one cried, "Get down there, young fellow, I never did see such manners. A grey beard walks where you should be. He should ride, you should follow, just take that from me." "Dear sirs," quoth the miller, "I'd see you content." He climbed to the saddle, on foot the boy went. 3 girls passed. Said one, "Do you see that old gent? There he sits, like a bishop. I say it's a shame, while that poor boy trudging after him seems more than half lame." "Little girl," said the miller, "go back whence you came." Yet this young creature so worked on his mind that he wanted no woman to call him unkind, and he said to his son, "Seat yourself here behind." With the donkey bearing double, they jogged on again, and once more met a critic who said, "It is plain, only dunces would give their poor donkey such pain. He will die with their weight. It is a shame and a sin. For their faithful servant they care not a pin. They'll have nothing to sell at the fair but the donkey's skin." "Dear me," said the miller, "what am I to do? Must I suit the whole world, and the world's father too? Yet it must end some time, so I'll see the thing through." Both father and son now decided to walk, while the donkey marched in front, with a strut and a stalk. Yet the people who passed them continued to talk. Said one to another, "Look there, if you please, how they wear out their shoes, while their donkey takes his ease. Were there ever, do you think, 3 such asses as these?" Said the miller, "You're right, I'm the donkey, it is true. Too long have I listened to people like you, but now I am done with the whole kit and crew. Let them blame me or praise me, keep silent or yell. My goings and comings they cannot compel. I will do as I please." So he did, and did well. And the moral of this story is, when you try to please everybody, you wind up pleasing nobody, least of all yourself. Thank you so much for listening. If you could take a moment and click the subscribe button and share this video, I'd be forever grateful. Thank you.